everyone, and welcome to our YouTube channel, Moneyline with Nancy at TV. In case you're not a subscriber yet, please do subscribe. Just press the subscribe button as well as turn on the notification bell so that you can get notifications when we upload our videos. Don't also forget to subscribe and join, follow, like our other social media platforms. Of course, you're seeing it right about now. Don't also forget to share this video across your platforms. Enjoy the... All right, welcome back. Like I mentioned earlier, in 1999, Nigeria officially returned to democratic rule after years under military dictatorship. On June 12, Nigeria will commemorate the return to democracy. 26 years of uninterrupted democratic governance. And since then, we've had, I think, 7 general elections, over 20 national budgets. I just put over 20 there because, you know, you see supplementary and co, but at least over 20 national budgets and countless economic blueprints from needs to Vision 2020, the ERGP, to the present renewed hope agenda. This should be a moment of reflection, not just on ballots and politics, but more importantly, on what democracy has delivered to the average Nigerian in terms of economic well-being. The promise of democracy was not just political freedom, it was the expectation of jobs, healthcare, dignity, mobility, and justice. But has this promise been fulfilled? 26 years later, the big, piercing, and necessary question I ask today is, has democracy delivered economic justice to Nigerians? Have the votes we cast translated into jobs, better roads, stronger naira, stable electricity, and affordable food? Or have we just institutionalized a system that prioritizes politics over people, power over productivity? And to explore these deep questions and more, I am joined by a guest whose work dissects governance, policy, and performance. Patrick Okigbo III, the founding partner of Nextier, a public policy consultancy that works across governance, development, and strategy in Nigeria, and perhaps beyond, because I haven't seen him in a while. He's also a member of Nigeria's Presidential Economic Coordination Council, isn't it? Yeah. Patrick, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Nancy, for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Let's just begin, because I think we have a lot to discuss. A foundational scorecard, the heart of the matter, like, is it the Banji that said the cocoa of the matter, you know? Has democracy, in your view, especially after 26 years of uninterrupted civilian rule, like alluded earlier, would you say that Nigeria's democracy has really fulfilled the promise of economic justice? What metrics or realities tell the real story? Perhaps we should also look in practical terms for the average Nigerian, for the trader, for the farmer, for the civil servant, what June 12, which is just like a few hours, will mean or means for us as Nigerians.
Interesting. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. You use a very technical term, you know, which is economic freedom or economic justice, right? And it means the ability of individuals or businesses to transact freely without government interference, you know. And there are parameters for measuring this. You know, it looks at rule of law, it looks at size of government, it looks at regulatory efficiency, open markets. And there are think tanks like the Heritage Foundation that tracks these numbers for countries. And if you look at how, you know, the numbers, what Nigeria ranks, or how Nigeria ranks on that number, Nigeria scores about 53.2 points, you know, which places us at 125 out of 165 countries, you know. And they state very clearly that we are really unfair. You know, so there's a clear answer to that question. That democracy, as defined, has not delivered economic freedom for Nigerians, right? If you break it down a bit further, you know, so if we use numbers that Nigerians can understand, if you use, say, like GDP per capita, for instance, the answer gets a bit fuzzy. Because if you look at 1999, our GDP per capita was at about 480, okay. You know, these numbers, it depends.
Yes. Around $400.
Let's say around $400, right? Today we're at about
It
$1,600.
depends on the metrics you're looking
Again,
at.
it depends. But at
Because
least
the
we.
IMF said $835
But we can agree that at least we've seen a movement in a positive direction from 400 to your 800 or 400 to my 1,600.
But devaluation has played a role there.
Okay, but let's just choose numbers that we can agree on,
Okay.
right? Okay. Viewers at home would say, how have we performed relative to countries our size or in our neighborhood? Yeah. So let's use Ghana, for instance. In the same 1999, Ghana was at about $400. Today, Ghana is at about $2,300, yeah, per capita GDP. So they've performed way better than us. If we look at where we should be punching, you know, because it's a bit of a disgrace that we compare ourselves to Ghana. If we look at countries our size, countries that have the resources we have, both human and natural, we should be punching at about $5,000 GDP per capita. So although we've seen a positive, we've not done well. You know, that's the LCM of it. That in terms of economic freedom, elections have not delivered the result we expect. I've chosen not to call it democracy because I am not sure that what we have practiced in the last 26 years is democracy. We've had elections, but democracy in the classical definition of democracy, government of the people, by the people, for the people, we have not practiced that in 26 years.
So what have we practiced? Just
No, we've had elections. We've had elections. What we've done is we've switched from, you know, khaki to agbada, yeah, but the elite capture remains. The same way the institutions that we had for colonialism remained even after independence. So if you go back to 1960 to date, we haven't had democracy. We haven't had any government that really represents the feelings or the desires of the people. You know, so what we have is we hold elections. It has all the facade of democracy, but there's nothing in it that represents democracy.
So from your definition, perhaps we have what we call agbada
Agbadacracy. That's your coinage.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
From kakistocracy
exactly.
to agbadacracy. Okay, I think let's take this vox pop because my team went to the streets to actually gauge the pulse of Nigerians. And like I mentioned earlier, June 12th, of course, marks 26 years of interrupted democracy, a journey filled with milestones, challenges, and reforms. And many Nigerians acknowledge that. But beyond the politics, the real question for many Nigerians is if indeed democracy has delivered economic freedom and has the right to vote translated to better jobs, stable prices, and improved living standards, like Patrick has mentioned. Perhaps we just have elections. Let's take a listen to what Nigerians have to say.
Democracy, if it's been working for us as a nation, sure it is. I think democracy is simply a system of government. And like its definition, it's a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. If it is not democracy, of course it would have been a military rule. I have lived long enough to witness both. And I will tell you that democracy is better. Why is it better? People still have their opinions. People still make suggestions. Economically, it might not have been working very well, and that is because there has always been change of government from time to time. And as long as you have change of government and change of policies, people implement what they think will make it work better, and then when another person comes in, he tries another method. And sometimes, because of this trying and trying and trying, we find it difficult to find the very one that will help the nation to move forward. But if you ask me, democracy truly is working.
When you talk about democracy working for us now, I really think it's not really working the way it ought to have been because of the type or the nature of politics that is going on in this country. Not that it's not a good one. It's far, far better than what we had before. But based on what is going on in the country now, the tribalism, the everything, the godfatherism and everything, is not really working the way it should be.
I think for the past 26 years, Nigeria has never, for once, experienced democracy. Unless you want to hide or pretend. Probably if it is favoring you, if the government of the day is favoring you, you then think it's working. But this is not democracy. Especially from the time of Obasanjo, I'm sorry to say, we never practiced democracy. So the likes of Obasanjo and co. trying to cry for the government of the day, that was when it started. So anything Mr. Tinubu, the president of Nigeria, is doing now, he did not manufacture it. So because democracy has never happened, it has not happened to us. We have not seen it. So it is just a continuation of where they stopped. And the earlier we understand this, then the better for Nigeria. Can't really tell that what we are experiencing, what we have economically in Nigeria today is as a result of democracy. It is not democracy. If you want to run democracy, if you want to calculate the economic value of democracy to Nigeria, it is far from what we are seeing economically.
Say there is nothing to celebrate about it because there's hardship everywhere. People are suffering. The cost of things in the market is too high. So like before, me and my friends, we used to go out. We wear green, white and go out. But this time around, for the past 2 years, has not even mean anything to us again. There's nothing to celebrate about it. I don't know if there's something that can be done. I used to see signposts everywhere. They say voice of Asiwaju Bola Tinubu is your voice matters. And I used to wonder in my mind that if our voice really matters, is it the person we really want? It's not the one we want. So if you ask for my opinion, things are not really going well with the country. So I don't know if there's anything they can do about it or not. That's just it. Business are not moving. There's no money. There's hardship.
Talking about democracy working, it depends on how you're looking at it. We understand democracy is government of the people, by the people, and for the people. I think that's the simple definition of democracy. But you and I, if you lived in Nigeria, you ask yourself, has the people been the one who decided or who decides what happens in democracy here? Well, if democracy is all about election, we've been having elections, yes, since 1999.
All right, we've heard a few Nigerians speak. Patrick Okigbo III is still here with me. Patrick, the lower denominator, like you said earlier on, the LCM, from what Nigerians had to say is that we've seen less democratization of opportunity, but just the democratization of elite privilege. How do we fix this? Because it's just like a transfer. One respondent said that it's just like a continuation of what we had in the military. They just changed clothes. How do we address this? Are we not measuring our own kind of democracy with the right metrics?
If I had the answer to that question, I'll be I guess, a billionaire or whatever. But it's at the heart of the problem we face in the country. Yeah, we can't progress until power returns to the people, until the people in government know that they are accountable to the people, the masses. If they know that they are accountable to the elite, they can, rig the elections, vote themselves into power, and really forget about the concerns of the people who they're ruling. So this is really not an economic discussion. This is really a political discussion. And if we get to the politics of it, what's the challenge? The challenge is what we've talked about forever, which is how do we get credible elections, right? Nigerians were very hopeful in 2023 that elections, that their votes will count, that it will be electronically transmitted. If that did happen, then that would be the beginnings of democracy. But it never happened. And even till today, there's no real conversation as to how do we fix INEC to ensure that the votes will count. If the votes don't count, we can't have democracy, we can't have a politics that works. Atena Center, a think tank here in Abuja, did an analysis of some of the votes and showed that there is real corruption, real vote rigging, vote falsification of results, that the people's voices do not count. Yeah, so that's on INEC and voting. Then you look at the judiciary, right? If you say go to court, what go to court means is if you feel that the politics, the elections, the voting, didn't work, go and seek abdication in court. But that also means, or who said that to us, knows that when you go to court, that the judiciary is also broken, right? Chidi Odinkalo just wrote a good book, came out a few months ago, Selectorate. You know, he says that what we have is not an electorate, but a selectorate where it is the judges who decide who gets into power. So it's not only fixing INEC, it's also fixing the judiciary. Yeah. So it's a massive problem, and we can break it down further. But everything comes down to: is there the political will to fix the problem? But there will not be any political will because Rams don't vote for Salah. Yeah. The elite are not going to change themselves. It is the people who will force for this change to happen.
How about the people that are living in abject poverty?
Yes.
People, because a respondent actually also said that democracy could be working for some people that is working. It depends on which side of the divide you are facing. Some people will say, oh, fantastic, we've done well, if it's facing them well. So these people we are talking about, the Nigerian people that include you and me and others, how do we enforce? How do we, not enforce is the right word, how do we, okay, enforce, or how do we force these elites, you know, to have this political will? Sorry, Patrick, and let me bring this in. I moderated a session, I think whether for the NESG, like 3 years ago, or was it 2 years ago? And El-Rufai was on that panel. And I remember with some other, he was a governor then, that was 2023, just before the elections. And El-Rufai said something which caught me then. He said, if Nigeria has to grow, if we want to come out of this quagmire, that the elites have to have a consensus that this country would move forward. And I haven't forgotten that. Do you also think in that line, or is the job of responsibility of the people?
So first of all, we throw out this word elite consensus, but I don't know where that works, and I haven't seen where that has worked, right? Because there is no monolithic group that's called an elite. We have the political elite, we have the economic elite, yeah? And everyone has what they're fighting for in their own interest, right? So I haven't seen a place where the elite get together in a room and they say, oh, now we're going to do development. I haven't seen that happen. I haven't seen it in any of the economic history I've read, right? But what I've seen is that the people who are at the receiving end can say enough is enough, right? But these people are also not the downtrodden. It's not the poor. It's not the guys living below the poverty line. They can't do it. They are too poor, they are too hungry, they are too distracted to fight for any of these esoteric things that we're talking about. It is the middle class that will fight for it. Yeah? It is one who knows that his means of livelihood really does not depend on government. It is one who knows that he can, you know, go on strike, demonstrate for a week, and there's still money in the bank to continue feeding. Not the guy who knows that if he stands on the street for 2 days, he has to go back to go look for a day pay, you know, to feed his family, buy drugs for the family, etc. But the challenge we have in the country is that that middle class has shrunk significantly. The second problem we have is that all of us, all of us are feeding off government.
How?
Every single business in this country draws its sources from government. Government is the biggest spender. The economic sector that is not tied to government is, you know, it's negligible. You know, the guys in the banks depend on government. The guys running fast-moving consumer goods, they depend on government for one thing or the other. The rest of us depend on government one way or the other.
But isn't that supposed to also be the norm somehow?
Is it?
Perhaps if you're looking at fundamentally capitalist countries, is a bit different. Let me say the Americas or the US, for example.
So in a robust economy, what the government does is that the government creates opportunity for businesses to thrive. The government is not the one who owns and directs how the economy works. They set the rules, and people go out there and they create new businesses, they create new opportunities, etc. What opportunities are the banks creating, and they're declaring all the profits? Nothing. What they're doing is, if you cozy up enough with people in government, you get the deposits, you hold on to it, you make money. Look at all the other industries. They're all dependent on government. So what that means, in effect, to the subject that we're discussing, is that many of these guys can't speak You can't talk with food in your mouth, right? Now, so the people who can really speak is a very, very small number and shrinking very fast. You look at the people we call civil society, right? And when we say civil society, we are thinking civil society organizations, right? Many of them also depend on either international donors or government one way or the other. They have also become very political. It is not the civil society organizations we have today. They're not the ones that fought for June 12th. They're not the ones that fought for democracy. Yeah? We've gotten fat and lazy. Yeah? So that's on the one hand. Now, but the broader civil society, which includes the religious institutions, traditional institutions, our social clubs, we're all distracted. How many times have you seen any religious organization take on the big issue we have in the country, which is the need for political reform? They all talk about miracles and, you know, getting rich by doing nothing. Yeah? And we're not talking about the critical issue that if we had the political reform that ensures that our votes count, that the people we vote for are the ones who turn up, you know, in power, then many of these miracles we're hoping for would have happened. Yeah, because we'll have those economic opportunities to create businesses, and we won't be poor. And we then would not need any religious miracles to happen.
At the heart of what you're saying is a political system that is flawed.
Yes.
You know, and I know that even my colleagues that run political shows, I know that at least this week we should be able to see that. But how do we run a participatory political system with an exclusionary economic structure? And let me put it this way, you know, because democracy, for what I also understand, allows for competition of ideas. You know, but for an electoral process where you see heavy monetization of electoral processes predetermining economic injustice, even before the leaders assume office, how do we address that, where you have campaign finance rules are not adhered to? You want to be a governor, you're going to spend billions of naira. INEC is not even watchdogging, as it were. How do we address that?
You've touched on a critical component, you know, of if we want to have free and fair elections, we must have electoral finance reforms. Yeah. If you look at what the parties do, so they say, oh, you need to pay 100 million naira to get a ticket to run for governor. By so doing, you've excluded a large majority of people who could have run if it was at a more affordable rate. Yeah? But if once you put it at 100, you've said, I've limited it to a small group of people. Yeah? But we can't have that conversation because we don't have the pressure group to force the parties to do the right thing. Right now, what you have is, remember I said that the elites, they're not a monolithic group. You have the political elite, you have the economic elite. Yeah? The political parties, the leaders of the political party are part of that political elite. How are they going to change if ab initio that they've created a system that works? That system works. The political system we have in Nigeria works as designed for the people it's designed for. It's designed for the political elite to hold on to power. Why would they change it? There's no incentive for them to change it.
So how do we now achieve long-term development if our democracy is transactional? If according to your analysis that the people, the bottom of the pyramid will not change this, the middle class is expected to change this, and the middle class is also shrinking. The middle class are those that are jackpine.
Yes.
You know, so how do we now address that, since we already have transactional democracy? And I also need to put this, that 60% of our population are still under 30.
Yes.
You know, for a country such as Nigeria, huge potentials, energy, and we expect to have long-term development. Where do we now go from here?
There's nowhere we'll go. I'm telling you, you know, I'm not trying to be anarchist here. There is not going to be a future, there's not going to be a development in this country until we have political reforms. The political reforms will not happen if we keep hoping on the elite making those reforms happen. It will not. It will not come from the downtrodden. They don't have the head space. They don't have enough food in their stomach, enough calories to deal with that. It will come from the middle class. It's shrinking. The only hope I see is for a reemergence of the civil society, reemergence of civil society, to put pressure on both the political and the economic elite. It is that pressure that they will respond to. If there is no pressure, we will continue like this.
You just said you're not an anarchist or an angel of doom.
No, but it's...
And I'm already getting a bit downcast.
We've done 26 years of democracy, right? You will be hard-pressed to find one Nigerian who would say to you that we've had democracy. In the classical definition of democracy. It didn't start today. It didn't start in the 2023 elections. You know, it didn't start even in 1999. The rigging's been happening. Yeah? It did not start in 1960. So until we find a way to force for certain radical political transformations to happen, for instance, if the votes had been electronically transmitted in 2023, that would have been a major milestone in Nigeria's journey to development.
Okay.
Because what that would have meant is it would say to Nigerians that if you come out and vote, your votes will count. And then the politicians would know that they need to do well for the people. Today, nobody bribes, nobody buys votes anymore. In the past, they buy votes. Nobody bothers with that. Keep your money, buy the judges. Buy the judges. Nobody cares for buying votes. Why waste your money on buying votes? Why waste your money on campaigning? Nobody campaigns today. Have you seen any campaigns in any of the off-season elections, even in the main elections? You just keep your money, you buy the judges. And if you don't have enough money to buy the judges, you know you've lost.
Okay, so I hear, of course, our political process has to be right. If you had to redesign this kind of government to deliver better outcomes, what are the other, because I wanted to ask you like 3 things, but you said like 1. What are the other 2 things you would change immediately?
I hope and pray that the people in power today can understand that this process is not sustainable. And if they understand that this process is not sustainable, they can also understand that it takes little to become immortal. The president of this country can become immortal by doing a few little things that show Nigerians that he cares. But you see, we also focus a lot on the president, and we forget the 36
But can he
governors.
also do it when he also came from a fundamentally flawed system, which you've alluded to?
Yeah. I mean, broken vessels can deliver. You know, we can go biblical here. David wasn't a fantastically perfect vessel, you know, but God used him. Yeah. So broken vessels can deliver. But you see, my problem is the broken vessel will continue a broken vessel until he feels pressure. It is pressure that forces change. If that pressure does not come, it's c'est la vie. We continue rocking and rolling. Yeah? Many people in government, and again, I know that these conversations always end up pointing fingers at, say, the president. This is not a finger-pointing session. This is a system that's broken. If the president decides today that he wants to fix it, he's going to be hard-pressed to figure it because the system is broken. He's operating in a broken system. However, the starting point is deciding that I want to do something about it. If he decides he wants to do something about it, there are some things he can do that are almost performatory, you know, almost like you're showing off, but it indicates to people that you're serious. For instance, let's say we pulled the security details of all politicians, yeah, and say only the governor, only the president gets a security detail. Senators, congressmen, everybody, you know, join Patrick on the streets, walk. And God help you. You see that we'll begin to fix some of the insecurity. Because now you can't go home, you can't stay in your home, you begin to think, just that little thing, that just pulling the security details gets all of us to focus on this security problem. If we look at the size of government, if government decides, you know what, the people are suffering, and we're saying to them, tighten your belts, if we can do something exhibitionist, let it even be exhibitionist, we show that we're cutting down on this, we're cutting down on that, we're cutting down on that, the people will see that we're cutting down. And if we say to them, do your bit, they can do their bit. The problem is that there's a big gulf between where the elite are and where the people are. Yeah? And this side really does not understand what this side is feeling. The elite really do not understand what the poor in Nigeria are feeling.
So does that mean that the labor of our heroes past is really wasted?
It's a process, it's a journey. It's not wasted. Yeah? Again, we need to put it in perspective. Nigeria, how many years are we? You know, 6 decades?
Yeah.
In the larger scheme of things, we're still juveniles. Yeah, in the larger scheme, yeah. We're
Juveniles,
still-
huh?
yeah.
Okay, are you talking about democratic process or independence?
As a nation.
As
yeah?
a nation.
As an independent nation, we're still growing. When you're in
I
the,
think we'll be 65 this year. A man of
Yes.
65 years is not a juvenile.
a man of 65 is not. A nation of 65 is.
Other nations of 65,
Okay?
we can also compare.
We can compare.
In the United Arab Emirates, for example, some
Okay.
are not up to 65 or 60.
And we can, I don't want to be an
Okay,
apologist.
okay, some are not practicing democracy, but that's, oh, I wish this conversation can continue, you know, other forms, because democracy, another form of government, is it also compulsory?
So somehow I figured you'd go
Yes,
there.
yes.
And the question is always, is democracy a prerequisite for development to happen? And people will immediately point to China.
China,
Yeah,
yes.
and they can point to Singapore, which is a bit of a democracy, but it's also an authoritarian government. The problem is that democracy as a concept, and what is the concept of democracy? It is that power resides with the people. Power resides with the people. You need it as a prerequisite for development to happen. Yeah? Even in China, where it is a communist nation, they also feel the pulse of the people. So you see that when the people tend to move in, they respond to it. If there is no mechanism where you respond to the pulse of the people, development will not happen, right? So you can have development, as we've seen in China, under, you know, a communist authoritarian government. You know, Acemoglu and Robinson will argue that it's not sustainable. Time will tell. But the point is that power must always reside with the people for the elite to do what is right for the people.
Okay, let's take a few comments. Some are come, but I think I could take two. Kayode Abraham on Twitter, that's on X, is saying, I've got only 2 letter words for the issues and teasers. That's if our democracy is actually engendering economic justice. And he said, big no is the answer. And I stand to be corrected. We are in an era of political jamboree where citizens' livelihoods and well-beings mean little or nothing to political gladiators. What we have is pseudocracy. That's another pseudocracy. Pseudo as in
Okay, pseudo.
yes,
False.
PSE,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, okay.
You know, and okay. This comment is, oh, excellent interview. I need to watch again. Reality in the highest level. Thank you.
I don't know how much time we have,
Yes,
but
just 1 minute.
the reality is, the guy is right. It hasn't worked, but we shouldn't throw away the baby with the bathwater. Democracy is important for democracy, for development to happen. But democracy is only one component. There are other components: good governance, institutions, etc. But if you don't have that base right, all these other ones may not happen.
On a score of 0 to 10, assuming you're a teacher, how would you rate using a lens, a magnifying lens, and saying, okay, we may get here, we may get to our destination when?
China pulled almost 1 billion people out of poverty in less than 30 years. We've seen it happen in Rwanda, in Singapore, in so many other countries. With good leadership, we can turn this whole thing around within, I would say, within 4 or 5 election cycles.
That's like 20 years. 20
yeah.
years. Okay, I hope in 20 years that we're not here talking the same thing.
I hope so too, but remember what I said, it's, you know, if we get the good leadership, if we have leadership that is committed to the people, leadership that feels the pulse of the people, and leadership that knows that it's accountable to the people, not just a good man or woman, you know, but someone that knows that they draw their power and their legitimacy from the people. And it's clear to them and it's clear to the entire political class.
Thank you very much, Patrick.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you. Fantastic conversation, like someone has said. What more can I say? Democracy is a destination, but many of you have said we are not practicing democracy. I wonder what President Tinubu would say tomorrow if he speaks to us at 7 a.m. I hope so. But some of you will say, okay, the usuals. We'll hear the normal nice things, but it moves more than that. I've been speaking with Patrick Okigbo III, founding partner at Nextier. And I'll see you all again next time. I am Nancy Naji. Be the best you can be. And most importantly, be that change that you want to see too. Bye for now. Thank you for making it up to this minute watching the video. Thank you all. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Moneyline with Nancy TV. Like, follow all our other social media platforms where we keep you up to speed with fantastic interviews, as well as markets, personal finance, business, and economy information. This is the best place to be. I'll see you all again in the next video.